Hello, valued listeners. So welcome to have you here today. I am Denise Mayer, if you haven't been on our podcast before, and I have started Step Up Anderson Township. I'm the founder and the director, and we started Step Up in 2018 to address vaping and some of the dangers that our kids were being exposed to. We've done a lot since then, but it is always difficult to meet you where you are. So what we've decided to do is start this podcast. And in doing so, we're hoping that you'll have the time to stop in it and start it if you're doing this at home, or if you are listening on Spotify in your car while picking up your son or daughter from their extracurricular activities. And we are hoping that we can reach you and educate you about the dangers that are out there for our children. So with that, I'd like to welcome Scarlett Hudson. Hi, Scarlett.
Hi, Denise. Thank you for having us.
Well, I'm very excited to have you. Scarlett is with Women of Alabaster, actually. And she's going to actually tell you a little bit about herself personally, how she got to this point. I was going to read her bio, but I'd rather have you tell us, Scarlett.
Okay. So I am 66 years old. I'm old. I started this ministry about 14 years ago in 2010 after I had gone out on the street with somebody from my church. And I went out on a Friday night and met a woman and hid with her behind a hotel from her abuser, and stayed there with her till about 4:30 in the morning. And all the things she shared with me, it just really broke my heart. And that night on my way home, the Lord really just laid it on my heart that this is what I was to do with my life. And I had been in a corporate setting for 32 years. I was the director of education for Matrix Essentials, which was a L'Oreal brand at the time, and also for Tressa, which was a local hair color company. So was in the industry for 32 years in corporate, and left it all. And I was 57 when I left completely and started Women of Alabaster, and I haven't looked back since. So I am we're still going. We have 2 locations now, one in Cincinnati and over the Rhine, and one in Hamilton, Ohio. We've also helped someone in Dayton start a facility like ours in Dayton, and one in Rochester, New York. And
Wow.
so, yeah, we've been doing a lot of stuff. And so that's why we're here today. And I met you, Denise, years ago when we did a Hope International presentation for domestic minor sex trafficking at Anderson Township. I think it was at the Methodist Church. Is that
It
correct?
was. Yeah, it was. So
And
informative.
yeah. And so I work with Shared Hope International. I've been with them longer than I've been doing what I'm doing. I've been with them for about 15 years. And so I am a corporate educator for them, an ambassador. And we go into churches and schools and pretty much anywhere to talk to people about the dangers of domestic minor sex trafficking in their communities.
Yeah, can you talk a little bit about that to actually let people understand what's a typical client that you deal with, and where they come from and that type of thing?
Okay, so I think to understand that you have to understand what it is, because I don't think a lot of people understand what sex trafficking is and how it occurs. And so typically, domestic minor sex trafficking is any child under the age of 18 that performs a sexual act in exchange for anything of value. And that could be food, shelter, drugs, or money. So it could be any of those 3 things that they would exchange it for that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I can go through some of these things with you quickly about the groom process and what happens during that time frame, and what children are more likely to be trafficked. And it doesn't really know any socioeconomic structure. It doesn't matter whether you're rich, you're poor, you have lots of money. That has nothing to do with it, nothing whatsoever. We found a girl that in Fort Mitchell, Kentucky, that was doing it out of her bedroom, and her parents had no idea. Okay, this girl they had plenty of money. There was no reason for her to do this. I think it started out her and some of her friends thought it would be funny and fun, and then the money started coming in.
Mm-hmm.
It was a lot of money.
Yeah.
Okay, unfortunately, those children are really accessible to these men, and they can coerce them into coming out and meeting them instead of trading sexual favors across the internet, or
Mm-hmm.
like sharing. And so that becomes a danger, because then they become the predator comes in, and now it could be multiple men. They don't know when they go to the hotels or wherever they meet them whether or not there'll be others there, and that's really gets the ball rolling for these young children. Just some facts for you, I think that will help the listeners. There are literally thousands of American children that are victimized every year in this industry. Thousands. And the average age is typically between 12 and 17.
Hmm.
That's the age range when they get started. I was actually in jail yesterday ministering to a young lady who was 22 who started at 12. So I have some really raw information within the last 24 hours. Mom and dad weren't in the picture. Grandma was raising her. And she became, when her parents weren't there anymore, she became angry, and just all these things that occurred. And she talked about trading her body for sex in like it was a natural thing.
Hmm.
So I'm sitting here trying to not minimize it, but minister to her in a way that she can understand. Now, listen, she came from where her grandma lived was a wealthy area. Okay, so it wasn't like she was destitute or didn't have things.
And
Okay,
I think really, Scarlett, that's the big thing that I really hope this podcast can get across. It can be anybody at any time. And I
yeah.
think too, and I just raising this question to you, that all of this stuff on social media that has happened with their phones has allowed this to escalate, in my opinion, so that no one is safe. And if you said that now they have a lot of money. Okay, well, that's one thing. But if they owe somebody for something or being blackmailed for something,
Mhm.
is that something that occurs pretty often?
Absolutely, because sex trafficking occurs through force, fraud, or coercion. That's how it occurs. Um, you know, especially when you're looking at, I'll just use the gaming industry, for instance.
Mhm.
And kids go on the back rooms, there's chat rooms there, and they think they're playing with kids that they may not know. Okay, let's say I don't even know a game because I don't know all the games, but
I don't either.
they're playing, and they go into the chat room and say, hey, are you playing this game? Yeah, you want to play together against each other? Great. And so then the predator, the pedophile, will talk to them, and he'll say things like, oh, hey, wait a minute. Why don't you come over to my house? Let's play together. I have 2 PlayStations or whatever they're playing on. You can
Mhm.
play on one and I'll play on the other, and we can hang out. That's how the pedophiles work. They lure them out. So, and then on the phones, if the kids are on Snapchat or if they're on the other chatty rooms that are out there, many predators disguise themselves as youth, as kids,
Mhm.
to lure their victims out. If your kids go to malls, they shouldn't go by themselves. They should be in groups, and they shouldn't leave each other, especially now that we have an influx of people in our country that are not about good things.
Not
Okay,
citizens. Yeah. Hmm.
not just do anybody, but especially now. I won't say that, but especially now
I
we are
yeah.
at high risk. We are at high risk. our children are at high risk. Their children are at high risk. I was in Chicago recently training an outreach team in the south side of Chicago. And while we were out, we met two Hispanic young girls that were, that's the sanctuary city. And we were right near the housing where they are. And these two girls were out, they couldn't even speak English when we jumped out of the van to give them food. And they couldn't even speak English, but they were out prostituting themselves. Think about that.
So
These were
sad.
young girls. When people get desperate,
Mm-hmm.
familia trafficking is when a family member traffics you. Okay, if a mom or a dad aren't don't look the part, but their daughter does, and they need money for the family. Think about that.
Mm-hmm.
Think about that.
Yep.
You know, and traffickers, are the traffickers. They prey on hurting and abused kids, bullied kids, runaways. They say within 48 hours of a child running away, they will be approached by a trafficker, because these kids that run away go in these areas where the traffickers prey on children. They know where they're going to be. It's somehow when a kid runs off, that they find these other kids, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so you need food, if you need money, they're lonely, they're disconnected from family. I don't know. When I was a kid, I always said, I'm going to run away. My mom would pack your bag. Okay. Right.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
don't know how dangerous that is. Right. But, but anyway, they're lonely kids. They've probably been disconnected from family members. Maybe the family isn't so great. um Maybe it's just a kid that has some mental health issues that are
Mm-hmm.
and they take off. So we got a kid, it takes off. The trafficker can get a hold of them that way. I know that I was shown some things. I was in a class, and some FBI agents were there, and they showed us some things online, and it looked like you were buying dogs and cats. And it would say, well, there would be like a blonde Labrador lab right there, right? Or golden retriever. And it would say a blonde male, 7 years old. Well, basically it was a child, 7 years old, that was blonde headed, that they were selling. Okay. And
Unbelievable.
referenced the boys as a dog and the girls as a cat. Okay. So I
Yep.
saw this. I was like, my gosh, now this is the deep dark web. You have to be, in that arena for that. But, traffickers can, we're hearing more and more about high school teachers. There was just one in Delhi that got in trouble. Youth leaders. The people that are preying on our kids are unlikely characters. It could be your next door neighbor. Um, it's scary.
So
It's
you have
scary.
to talk to the kids. You have to explain this because
Yeah,
it's so far out of most of the kids' realm of understanding. I mean, the parents probably don't understand it, but the kids sure don't understand it. And we've done all this stuff with, don't touch my body parts, private parts and all that kind of thing. But this is a mind game. And that by the time they draw them in, it's difficult to get them back out again.
absolutely. And if a kid has any sort of adverse childhood experience, molestation, trauma, 1 out of 5 girls will be molested, 1 out of 7 boys. Those aren't good odds, okay?
No.
And many times what I find in my older women that I talk to, that has occurred with them. Okay.
Mhm.
It's either by a family member, someone close to the family that has access to these kids when they're younger. So, and sometimes if you have a daughter or a son that's kind of backwards, they'll prey on them too. They might pose as a boyfriend if it's a girl, and telling them, oh, I love you. Let me buy you some things. Um,
Well,
you know,
that was on the movie, The
yeah,
Chosen.
yeah.
Right.
So
You could
Shared
talk about that at some point. Yeah.
Shared Hope has a movie called The Chosen,
Mhm,
and there's a young lady on there. She was a great student, upper middle class family.
mhm,
Um, she worked on the weekends. She wanted to be a nurse. She was a cheerleader. She went to Sunday school
mhm,
and she worked in a restaurant. And this young boy, he wasn't the trafficker; he was a groomer.
mhm,
So, groomed her. So he came in. He sat down. He had, dinner a couple times. He told her how pretty she was, and he said, what do you want to do when you grow up? She said, well, I want to be a nurse and I want to go to school in Seattle, but my mom and dad won't let me. There you go.
mhm,
So he keeps coming. He says, hey, listen, I live in Seattle. Why don't you come to Seattle with me and you can do whatever you want? Okay. This was a good kid,
and
but
she was, and the boy, the groomer, was real attractive, and
oh yeah,
actually, he was like much older, but he didn't appear to be quite so much older. And as I recall, I mean, what young girl doesn't like that kind of attention?
oh yeah, he looked like a movie star,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm. Yeah.
He gets her to Seattle and he takes her to this house. And it's the traffickers. Older men,
Hmm.
groomed, he got paid for bringing her there, right? He,
Right.
so to speak. But her story does end well, which is good
Hmm.
because her parents' car and the way they got her back was her boyfriend from high school. She said he was the only one she could trust.
Hmm.
So she called him and said, I'm going to bring my parents' car to your house. You give my parents' car back to them for me. Well, he had enough sense to call her parents and call the police, and they were there waiting. And so was the lady Shared Hope and explained to her what had happened.
Hmm.
Crazy that they were there because her story could have ended very tragically.
Very badly, as a lot of them do. And the thing is that they're so vulnerable, and with all the social media, trying everybody wants to be prettier, all of the stuff that goes on with that, they finally think, oh, somebody's really noticing me. So it's so totally understandable that this would happen like this. And no one thinks that their daughter working at the pancake house is going to be a target. That,
Mm-mm.
you're out, like, say, in Anderson, where I live, or wherever, and who thinks about that? And that's why you're here, Scarlett, to tell us.
Yeah, nobody thinks about nobody. These guys, they're slick. They're slick
Hmm.
will.
Hmm.
So a parent needs to look out for these three things. So if I had to share anything today that I think is so important about the recruitment and grooming period of this is a change in the daughter or son's behavior because it just doesn't happen. Okay, we need to make that clear. Maybe they're missing school. Maybe they're starting to dress different and suddenly their attitude just changes. And maybe they have signs of abuse. Maybe I know in my Sunday school class, I remember back, I had a girl in there that had a boyfriend that what they said was beating her up, you know, and he would see her in Sunday school and hold on to her so tight. And, we need to notice those kinds of things. He had a mental health, really, he did. Um, so the first thing is changes in behavior, you know, secluding themselves, staying in their room, whispering, private calls, trying to sneak around, things out of character for your child. And then the second would be changes in their lifestyle, like all of a sudden they have lots of money, or they
Hmm.
have or they have a new phone, or they've gotten tattoos, that you're like, okay, wait a minute, where's all this coming from? You know? And then the third thing is a change in friends. This is key. They may have hung out with really nice kids, and all of a sudden, this new boyfriend comes along and they're hanging out with him and his friends. They're going to parties. There's signs of drug and alcohol abuse or even gang affiliation, you know.
Hmm.
Um, we have to be aware of all the changes in our kids. And I think in today's society, with mom and dad having to work to make ends meet, many times, these signs can be overlooked. Many times the parents could think, oh, they're just upset because, we both have to work and blah, blah, blah. No, you need to really be aware. You need to be aware. I can say this in all honesty. If I had a child, they would not have a phone. If they had a phone, they would only be allowed to call me, uh, and no internet, no nothing. I'm
And
serious.
I
It's
am in
been,
total agreement that the old flip phone, or there's the thing called the Gab phone now, that
yeah.
only allows you to do what you just said, and there's no connection to the internet, and all this stuff. The other piece that I was at a conference last week, and they were talking about the gambling aspect. We have taken the harm away from gambling, how much it has destroyed families, destroyed, people's lives. And now we're reintroducing all this to our children, that they can get on certain games, like you mentioned, and they get a little token or something that they get from these games. And then, that desensitizes them to, like, okay, now I'm going to bet on some football. And then the way that works out is just where you're going with this, is then they owe somebody something. And so, so then there is, well, you can send me a naked picture of yourself, and, I will make that less money that you owe or whatever. And so all of these things, introduction to pornography, introduction to all these things, results in what you're talking about today. This, the harm reduction, and oh, that can't be that big a deal. And it just keeps going till it gets deeper and deeper.
Well, when I was a kid, I had three brothers, okay? And so, as a young child, back in the 60s and 70s, that was the sexual revolution, right? And
Yeah.
so
I was there. Yeah.
it
Yeah.
was. And so it started being more prevalent in TV, on movies, and we started seeing and hearing more explicit things. Um, I can remember when I was graduated high school and my brothers graduated, it was a rite of passage to go to a strip club for boys, or to sneak in when they were younger,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Yeah.
Um, and or Playboy magazines were all over the place. Hustler,
Mm-hmm.
influx, of it, and it was outward. In the 50s and earlier than that, we had more morals, I think, or ethics, in the fact that we didn't expose all of our nastiness, all of
Yeah.
that. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, internet and the phones, the kids are so exposed to all this. And there's a book out called Primal. And in this book, it talks about how a young man coming of age is going to find his sexual impulses needing to be met, right?
Sure.
So they now, especially if he looks at magazines or if he looks at pornography on the phone, that suddenly becomes not enough, right?
Right.
So then when he gets older, he can go out and he can go to strip clubs, he can go to massage parlors.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Then that becomes not as exciting. There's an innate thing in us to hunt, right? There is, especially men. And they like to chase. And so one night we were out on the street, and I'll just give you a for instance. We were out on the street in downtown Cincinnati. This guy was from the suburbs, we know it. And I was standing on the corner talking to one of the girls, and he stopped to pick us up, although he didn't know who he was stopping for. Okay. So one of the girls that was with me, she pulls the car door open in the back, and there's a baby seat in there. And she starts in on him and says, listen, he was young, 30. She said, you have a family at home. You have a child at home. You need to go home. That boy took off so fast. We
Good.
were we were laughing. We scared him. And I pray that he never came back there. But what we find, especially with the younger children, is that we don't see them out on the street. They are more secluded and they keep them inside. because there's a factor that they have to control them. So the people that are coming to buy them will come into either hotel rooms. They think they're going, they go in there to meet a 15-year-old or whatever. And it's a sad day. It's a sad day. Um, I've worked on some of these things and I've seen it happen.
Yeah.
Um, they target our kids that shop online. You would think something so innocent is shopping online. They get access to that. Bus stops, schools, after school programs. Oh my gosh. Do you know who's teaching your kid? Do you know who's the monitor for after school programs? Foster homes. Terrible. Some of these kids get into horrific things. Group homes. Group homes are bad for it. Correctional facilities, all these places that our kids gather, you know, uh,
How do you
you
how
need
do
to
you
know
rec-
where you,
well, I just wanted to ask, how do you recognize, in general, like if you would be at the mall or you would be somewhere and you suspect that something like this is going on, or Kings Island, or I don't know, and you see a young girl, or even a young boy, and the person with them is clearly not their parent, and they are controlling them, or picking them up, is what kinds of things do you look for?
well, most of the time the kid will, if you're looking at the child, and you see signs of abuse, their clothes may not be up to par. They look like they haven't slept. There's all these, you can see it, disheveled, scared. The person keeps them right next to them. They don't allow them to talk for themselves, you know? Um, and so at that point, I'm going to go get a police officer. I'm going to have somebody follow them, and then I'm going to get me
Okay.
a police officer. And I'm going to say, I'm really afraid for this child. If I'm wrong, I'll say I'm sorry, but I don't think we can let this go. Okay.
That's what I was wondering,
Um,
like how you involve the police, but that makes sense that, you identify someone that you think maybe is in jeopardy, and then the police, I hope, then are with it enough that they follow them to see where they go, what kind of situation. The problem is, of course, our police are so overworked. It's hard.
Even if you have like a house, there was a house they found in the suburbs, looked like a normal house, and they were trafficking children out of it. And if the three girls in Cleveland that they found after years, people living next door knew these girls were in there. Okay, come on now. If you see something like that, report it. The police can always go do a well check. It's called a well check. Say,
Mhm.
listen, I think I need you to go to this house and do a well check. This doesn't look right to me. There's a lot of people coming in and out of there, a lot of men. The kids never come outside. We know there's kids in there. There's something not right. It's okay to be a concerned person and
Well, and
citizen.
I think as a typical citizen in, in suburbia or whatever, you're worried that the neighbors are going to be really upset with you or whatever, but the child's life is so much more important than any of that.
Oh,
You
yeah.
just need to get past it.
Yeah, if you want to get over that fear, go watch Sound of Freedom.
Oh, I have. That is
Okay,
so powerful.
yeah, watch Sound of Freedom. Um, people need to open their eyes up. This is not an easy subject to talk about,
No,
or is it a pleasant one?
no.
Okay, it's not a pleasant one. But you know what? Sometimes their kids are just mislabeled too. You know what I
Ah,
mean? They're mislabeled. A child cannot be a prostitute.
no.
Okay. No, they're not doing it. No, no. They're not juvenile delinquents. They're not all those things. There's a reason why this kid is doing what he's doing, or he or she.
Well, they're so vulnerable, and their brains, I know this from all the drug work that we've done, they're not fully developed yet. So, you've got a young girl. probably mid 20s before they're even begin to be that. And that decision making part is the takes the longest to develop. And boys, I laugh at this, can be closer to 30. So it's not a surprise that this would happen. And it's been fueled, I believe, by, like you said, we have an influx of people that are not normally here. Then you have the social media with the phones and all the stuff that goes along with that. And then, we add these things where they can owe money, like gambling and that kind of thing too. But I think the perception has to change, Scarlett. You
Yeah.
think of a prostitute, or you think of, you think of somebody that's on the corner in one of these Law and Order movies or something like that. They've been doing it for 30 years or 25 years or some, and you think about all of that, and that puts a stigma on this that should not be there.
Well, let me share something with you. I had a girl that passed away now. She was from California, and we were driving down Vine Street one day, and obviously there's some pimps there and some girls, and she goes, you know, do you see what they're doing, Scar? And I said, yeah. I said, he's a pimp. He's pimping her out.
Mhm.
And she looked at me with this dumbfounded look and said, that's what was done to me when I was younger.
Yeah.
Okay. And
Mhm.
while they do not have a pimp now because she was older, because they get tired of being beat up, now they're hopeless because they've spent these years there. They're conditioned to it. They're
Mhm.
all this that this girl is carrying. We need to look at them with some empathy
Mhm.
and and say, and this is what trauma informed care does. What happened to you, babe?
Right. Exactly. Well, I
Not
used to
why
volunteer.
are you doing it?
Why were
What
you
happened?
doing that?
What
Right.
happened?
Something did. I went, I used to volunteer years ago at the runaway shelter up in Clifton. And I would take the kids out and, we'd go get something to eat or talk or whatever. And that was, these runaway children were from every aspect of society, from a judge's child to, somebody that is, hardly can put food on the table. It went the whole gambit. And the thing that they mostly said was nobody really gives a darn. And I'm using nice language they used to others. We can't imagine what that would be like to have somebody that really cares. And I think that they run away. You don't run away. I mean, we laughed about saying that to our mothers, but you don't really run away unless there is what you just said, trauma, whatever. This is a story I'm going to tell you really fast. This one young woman, she was being sexually abused by her stepfather. And I think they tried to, get whatever, and they got her out of the situation, put her into a foster situation. She didn't like the foster mom that was there. She opted to go back into that family situation where she was being sexually abused because she didn't know what else to do. Now, I think they ended up doing something to help her, but I'm just saying that's the mentality.
Mm-hmm. Well, also, she could be trauma bonded to her abuser.
True, very true. That
Okay,
happens, I know.
trauma bonding is typical in this. A lot of the girls say, oh, that's my boyfriend. No, he's your pimp.
Yep,
Okay. You
yep,
look at him as a boyfriend, but he's really a pimp. Okay. If you have to trade sexual favors to get him dope, he's a pimp. Okay. They
yep,
don't look at it that way. He loves me. No, he
yeah.
doesn't. If
No, it doesn't.
he was doing, okay. So this twisted uh thought process that they need love, right? They want to be loved. If they
Sure.
have had childhood experiences,
Mhm.
that that memory, that thought is still there.
Right, right.
Okay. And it will come out. And
Well,
it's in your amygdala. This
yeah.
side of your brain is where all of that occurs, memories and all of, I'm teaching a class at St. Hospital Monday, believe it or not, to a bunch of nurses about this.
Good.
And when people come into the ER and they're acting out, you need to ask them some questions.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Why? What am I seeing? What am I looking at?
Mm-hmm.
Person in the room with these people that are not letting them speak for themselves.
Right, right.
They're on drugs and they have sores and they have signs of abuse on them. And this man with them. You need to question and get him out of the room and
Right.
talk. You know,
What piece, now that you brought this up a little bit, what piece does, I mean, we've probably most of us seen the movie Taken, but what part does getting the girls hooked on something to control them is a piece of any of this that you see?
9% of the times they're on something.
And they
Yeah.
maybe didn't start out that way. The person got them on it.
They
That's
get
what I
them heroin, they get them hooked on pills, they get them hooked on anything. Think about this. Who could do what they do without something?
That's true.
Okay.
Very, very good point. Right.
You don't wake up one day and say, "Oh, I want to be this. I
No,
want to do this for a career. I want
no,
to do this."
no.
Wait to do that. So that's why I say, in 2000, they changed the verbiage to the TVPA changed the verbiage to say they are victims. They are not prostitutes. They are victims. Something has happened in their past that is causing this. Or we're going to see probably a lot of it, homelessness. I
Mhm.
have to survive.
Right.
Okay. I'm addicted to something. I have 16 girls downstairs right now. Okay. A lot of them are homeless. Think about what they might have to do to eat tonight, to have a safe place to sleep, but they have to trade something for it. And they don't even know that's what they're doing. They're just surviving. Mental health issues plays a big piece in it. Long-term trauma, chronic trauma, uh, plays a huge piece in it. Yeah, and society wants to close their eyes. I mean, if you look at all of this stuff that's coming out of Hollywood right now, Ep-
Absolutely.
Epstein, look at all this stuff that is coming and hitting us in the face, and we want to turn a blind eye because it's not what we want to hear or what we want to think about. It's happening.
Well,
It's
and we think never would it happen to my child, never would it happen to the grandchildren. You
yeah,
have this mindset that goes along with drugs too, and some
right.
of the other things that would never happen in my house, my child, whatever. And I think that's a comfort zone, but not
Yeah,
reality.
yeah. So parents need to put restrictions on the games that the kids play.
Hmm.
Need to tell them not to respond to strangers when they're communicating online. If someone sends them something, save the messages, save the photos, show me, what you're getting that are in a sexual nature. If the kid, if a child is, you fear a child is being molested by a parent and you're a neighbor, you have an obligation to report.
Absolutely.
Have a moral obligation, and that child is underage. And if you are a school teacher, a guidance counselor, a pastor, a youth pastor, and you oversee children and you see abuse in that child, you have to report
Mhm.
that. It's called a direct report. You must report. So if I see something, if an underage kid comes in downstairs, I automatically have to call the police and say I have a minor here. I have to report. I
Is that
could be
anybody under 18? Did you say is that under 18? Okay.
18.
Okay.
Recently, I went to Mongolia. I think I shared that with you. We're doing
Mhm.
some international things now, and went over there to talk to their parliament. That's their government. And as I was doing research on going over there, they changed the legal age to 14.
Oh, wow.
It means that they can be arrested for prostitution and put in prison with adults. Okay.
Unbelievable.
Unbelievable. I couldn't believe it. They are trafficking children over the border from Mongolia into China. Um, they identified over 800 children with 6 orphanages in the country. Okay. They have a 67%, I think it was 67% divorce rate. And these people are miners and farmers, and so they have many children, and the father leaves. What do you think? Think
What
about
do you
it.
think's going to happen? That's exactly right.
And then Mongolia is sandwiched right between Russia up above and China below, right? So there's a train that comes from Russia down. Guess what's coming in? They're,
Children.
tra- they're trafficking them down that railway. I am going back over there in May, I believe it is, next spring, to work with a group over there that's already on. They have one NGO that's working in one with
One.
5 that's working in Mongolia. And I met with them when I was there, and we conversate, via email. And I will be going back to go to the border with them.
Well, I saw a statistic, and I want to say it was from last year in 23, I think, that there are over 500,000 pedophiles in our own country.
Oh yeah, our country is the largest export of sexual content to other places. United States of America, the filming of children and adults.
That's so
We
disgusting.
are the largest perpetrator of that. It's sick.
It's
It's
so
sick.
sick.
It's sick.
That's what I
And
was reading. And I think the statistic was 1 in 9 of all of our children are being trafficked in some way. I
yeah,
don't know how accurate that is. Like I said, it was last year, but yeah.
yeah, yeah. Know who your kids go to sleep the night with. Sorry, my kids wouldn't be staying all night at anybody's house because I know too much. You can come to my house.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what my daughter feels like too. It's too scary. You just don't know. So
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about some of the successes that you've had. And also, I want everybody to know how to support you, how
Okay.
to get involved, all of that. But just tell us, give me a story that, you feel really good about.
Well, right now we have this summer we have annual Survivor Freedom Weekend for our survivors. I can't talk too much about them, but I
Sure.
can tell you that we have girls in long-term recovery from drugs and the life, and are living successful lives.
Oh,
Um,
good.
we have one girl that's a CEO for an addiction service place. We have another girl that works with girls um, in a program uh, to help them come off the street. We have other girls that are doing support at the jail, doing art therapy. I mean, we have a lot of successes.
You do. You do.
We do.
Absolutely.
But the advocacy, the thing that I see is we have a lot of advocacy because we're a frontline ministry, which means we see them we meet them on the street and then they come into our building, and it's frontline. We are right on the block, so to speak. And
Hmm.
so we supply them with a hot meal. They're having turkey supper today. Um, yeah. And and then there's clothing here, there's showers, there's a nurse in Cincinnati that helps us out, taking care of minor things. Girls come in pregnant. I have a girl downstairs that shared that with me today. I need to get her to a hospital. So we meet them where they are. She also is on meth. So we
Oh,
need to get detox and off of that quickly. She thinks she's 8 weeks pregnant. So we'll get her detox safely because she's not that far along, and then get her into a program so that her and the baby will be safe. That's the type of things we do.
so
We get
how can people get involved? You say how you got involved. How can people that are concerned with this, which everybody should be, but
Right.
we're a lot of times, people say to me, well, I don't know how to get involved. And, you share a website, that's fine. But, they don't know what strengths they have that could be beneficial to you. You just said about a nurse,
Right.
or yeah. So just mention that, how they,
We're looking for a nurse in Hamilton
okay.
um, to come in and do, they take care of minor things like cuts and bruises and pregnancy tests and that sort of thing. It's not real invasive stuff,
Mm-hmm.
um, but we need a nurse here. Um, and then so we do street outreach. So we need lunches to hand out. We need blessing bags to give the girls, hygiene bags. We need water I mean, it's simple stuff. A
Right.
lot of people cut out to go out on the street. We get that. It's dangerous where we go. It's
Mm-hmm.
very dangerous where we go. I mean, they're shooting guns and all kinds of craziness. Um, but people want to help. These are practical things that you can do. I have a lady at my church that I give her the first names of all the girls that we saw last night. And next time we go out, there'll be a card of encouragement for her. They cry over those cards.
I bet. I
They
bet.
for those cards. Somebody doesn't even know me sent a card. Okay, it can be as simple as that. We need sneakers. We need clothes. We need underwear. We need practical things. We need bras. Um, things such as that at both locations. Um, we
Well,
need
I'm
people.
going to
We need people to come in and serve. Volunteer.
like serve the food and do things like that. Well, I'll
Absolutely.
tell you, when you get a chance, if you can send me a list of some of the things that you're in need of, and I will do my best to get that out on our newsletter and where they can take it, if it's sandwiches or bras or whatever, because all of the places now with the holidays are going to be saying we need this, we need that. But I really feel the work you're doing, which is God's work, that it needs more attention for people to give to you. So tell me, I know it's Women of Alabaster, but what is the actual website? I'll put that on my newsletter, but yeah.
It's womenofalabaster.org, and
Uh,
there's a button there that says donate now.
okay,
It
good.
says donate now, and you can donate right on the website, or you can send it to if you want to send a check. We get lots of checks because if you donate on the website, they will take part of it. It's
Sure.
PayPal. Okay, so
Yeah.
and that's
Yeah.
normal, we know. But you can also send it to the address on the website in Dillsboro, Indiana, which is my address.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Okay.
and then
Okay.
if you share with us, there's an application on there. There's media on there that they can watch the video. Our video, Heroines of Hope, is on there under the media button. And then 7 Days of Heroin is on there. We were in that broadcast as well. And if you Google us, you're going to find
Yeah.
a lot of stuff. And we
Right.
were just documentary that WLW Channel 5 did and was just launched at the Freedom Center, Broken Chains. We were,
Mhm.
and Attorney General Yost was in on what came to that and spoke, and we've gone to speak to him. He's very much wanting to help, wanting
Good.
to, and we do other things that I do other things,
I know.
um, rescuing children, and that's all I can say right now.
Hmm.
Uh, that I can't really elaborate on, but know that we are in the trenches.
I know that.
And we don't say a lot about what we do online or anything because we have to protect the anonymity of those that we serve. And that's the most important. I'm a pastor, so
Mhm.
I'm very aware that when these girls have a new life, I want the old one to go away. I
Right.
want
Exactly.
no trace of it.
No
Um,
trace of it.
no
Hopefully,
trace
no
of
memory of it either. But yeah.
it.
Charlotte, I'll tell you, we're coming up on on a stop, but I am just so thrilled that you took the time to do this. And I'm hoping that we can get this podcast out. Anthony will have it up and running probably in a week or so, and that we can get this out there and see if we can't get some donations and involvement, because I think this is such valuable information. I knew that the first time I had you, but this is good, really great.
Yeah, and if they would like us to come, I can do a shared hope presentation for them. And I
Mhm.
always great Women of Alabaster to give them some reality in with it. And all they have to do is call my phone number or text it. I will call you back and we will come. It's so important that we educate. That's the biggest thing. If I can
It's
say
the biggest.
anything,
Hmm.
educate, educate, educate. Make
Yep.
your children aware.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
You need
Yeah.
to be responsible and get mom and dad and the kids in a room and let us come and
Right.
share with them to protect our children.
Yes.
We'll go to schools and
Right.
listen.
Yep.
Um, I've done 2 schools and we had a girl come up to us and say, "Can you go find my mom?"
Oh.
Okay.
Oh.
Okay. Things like
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, just
I'm going to keep you in mind. I'm going to keep you in mind and pass this information along. Like I said, I'll do it in the newsletter, and then hopefully this podcast will reach some people that need to know about it. But I cannot thank you enough. Mostly, I can't thank you enough for the work that you do. You are doing God's work. That's my opinion. And I'm sure everybody else would agree with that too. So thank you for being on. And I just can't thank you enough. So, and to our listeners, I want to say thank you so much for listening. We will be able to have this podcast. It'll be on our YouTube channel. It will be on all the social media, including LinkedIn and X and Instagram, Facebook. And then it'll be on our website, which is www.stepupanderson.org. And I will have Scarlett's website up on there too, and how you can get involved with that, as we mentioned. But please share this anywhere you can. It's going to be on Spotify as well, if I didn't say that. But please share it. But also like it and follow us, because there will be more and more of these podcasts that will be Step Up to Save Our Children. Again, this is Denise Mayer, and I'm so happy that you took the time to listen. Thank you. Y'all have a great day.